But first, Kathy Pelletier is a writer who grew up and lives in the small town of Allagash in northern Aroostook County, so she knows winter. Her new book tells the story of what happened when Maine was all but paralyzed by a storm in February of 1952, a storm that left 36 people dead in New England, 6 of them in Maine. The book is called Northeaster, and in writing it, Kathy Pelletier did an enormous amount of research. The adults she wanted to write about and get information from are nearly all gone now, so Pelletier turned to other sources, their children.
So I contacted them, and they're like friends now. I feel as if I've known them all my life. I sent one woman over 1,000 questions about her mother in 2 years, emailed her.
After you sent question 924, did the person just say, "Kathy, back off, will you?"
You know, she should have. But the wonderful thing about this is they're all in their 70s and 80s and retired. And just as my weatherman was retired, so I look for retired experts in all these fields that I dealt in mostly.
You consulted with a weatherman
Yes.
to get a better understanding of exactly what the storm did. Who was that weatherman?
Joe Cupo. And it couldn't have been a better choice. I mean, he is just delightful and wonderful and answered so many questions. At one point he said, well, I don't know if that first storm was a blizzard or northeaster. And I said, how do we find out? And he said, well, you need weather maps from 1952. You're never going to find those. So about a day later, I wrote back and said, Joe, I got the weather maps. And he was all excited because he misses the weather at times, right? So it was a delight to work with him.
The storm dumped up to 30 inches of snow on Maine, but it was the wind that left the state all but paralyzed, with snowdrifts 10 to 12 feet high in places.
There were a lot of people who got stranded in their cars or maybe just got off of the Maine Turnpike. A lot of them took refuge at the Howard Johnsons on the Turnpike, right?
Yes, the only one, the first in Maine at the time. The Maine Turnpike at that time was, I think, from Kittery to South Portland, about 45 miles, and 1,000 people were stranded in that short distance of road, and Route 1 shut down. For a while, Maine was completely isolated from the rest of the nation, which we kind of think we are anyway, right? But this really was. And yeah, 1,000 people, and at the Howard Johnsons, I think there were 400 packed in there.
What inspired Kathy Pelletier to write this book? It was the photos she saw of the storm and its impact. The more she dug into the photos and other details, everything from census reports to newspaper articles, the more she was drawn into the story.
And I didn't want to leave 1952. I listened to songs from 1952. I guess kind of like an actor gets in shape for a role. You know what I love about it is the little things that happened that were humorous too. A mannequin blew out of a department store window in the streets of Portland. The wind broke the window and blew this mannequin out on the sidewalk, and passersby thought it was a real body and began panicking. And of course there were people calling in to complain that they had no cigarettes and why aren't the roads plowed? You know, you're always going to have those people every storm.
If people have heard of the Northeaster of February 1952, it's likely because of this film.
I repeat, conditions hazardous. We've got an 18-foot fracture in our home. How do you want us to proceed? Over.
The movie, which came out in 2016, is called The Finest Hours.
What's this on the radio? Ship breaking up.
She's a T2 tanker, split right in half.
We got maybe 2-3 hours, and then we sink.
The Finest Hours tells the story of how the Coast Guard rescued most of the crew aboard the SS Pendleton, one of 2 tankers that split in half off Cape Cod during the height of the storm.
I found the Coast Guard consultant for the film The Finest Hours, and he became my Coast Guard person when I needed to find things about what the Coast Guard did.
You are from the very northern tip of Maine, which of course has weather that is far fiercer in the winter than what the southern part of the state had. In bringing this story to life, did you kind of think, you know, those southern Mainers, they're kind of wimps, you know, they can't handle a real storm?
Of course I did. No. Look what we just went through. Minus 60 degrees wind chill factor. And I got stuck in the Northeaster as I was out promoting my book and ended up 3 days at the Hampton Inn, unable to leave in Presque Isle and wanting to go home because I was an hour and a half away. And here I was in Presque Isle thinking, I know that road. I can drive it. Sure, blowing snow. I wrote about that. It's not, you know, it's not going to kill me. So, yeah, we're used to weather up there, but I could still be stupid. about taking chances.
As can we all this in the wintertime. Kathy Pelletier has been traveling around the state doing signings and talking about Northeaster. If you want to know where she might be appearing next, you'll find a link in the 207 section of our News Center Maine app and website. By the way, her first signing for Northeaster was in Fort Kent at the end of January. She says on the drive home there was so much snow blowing off the river that the visibility on the road was just about zero.